Joining us now for our STEAM Roundtable, we've got, wow, what a team we got here. We got Mike Watson, former House of Delegates member. We've got Susan Stewart, small business owner in Petersburg. She's a hairstylist, Apothic Company. She's with us. Martha Bonetta needs no introduction. Leon Benjamin, running for Congress in the 4th District, Republican. Hey. He's already the nominee. Leon, good to have you. And special guest, State Senator and my good friend, Democrat, Petersburg, Hopewell, Joe Morrissey. Senator Joe Morrissey, Fightin' Joe Show. It's coming back to WJFN any day now. Hey, Joe, good to have you, man.
John, it's good to be back. Thanks for inviting me. You look terrific. Have you lost a little weight?
I've lost some weight.
Good for you.
Stay at home and do all that stuff and
exercise at home.
Well, I've got my son, workout guy, right?
Yeah.
Workout freak, 15, and best thing I did is I saw this coming. I saw it coming, and he goes to the gym every day, and I said, okay, if he doesn't get to go to his gym, he's really going to be upset.
Yeah.
So early on, before any of the shortages, we invested in all the home gym equipment, built it in our garage. He's got the whole thing set up now. And if you try to get it now, it takes months. Everything's on back order. So.
I got a home gym.
Home gym.
Yeah. Cool. Congratulations. You look great. You look fit. And keep doing it.
Thanks,
It's
Joe.
good to be back with you and to join all of your wonderful guests.
So we've been very complimentary of you, Joe, in this session, and actually the whole Democratic caucus as kind of the voice of reason in Virginia for some of the things that have gone on. So let's get right to the thing. You're going to a veto session today. What's the main issue?
Yeah, it's the reconvened session where we consider the governor's amendments to various bills, including the budget. And so we'll take up all of those amendments, and I would expect that almost all of the amendments to the budget will be agreed to by the Senate and the House. Why is that? Because most of those amendments are to roll back spending in certain areas, even those programs that we all have hold near and dear to our heart. Why? Because the money's not there. There's going to be a $2 billion, that's with a B, deficit. Then there are some other issues that we'll probably vote up or down, and the Democrats will vote down a few of the governor's amendments, but most of them I expect will be agreed upon.
What is the most controversial one, in your judgment?
Maybe the amendment dealing with minimum wage, perhaps the one dealing with moving up the ban on payday loans and that type of thing, and which I think those might be a couple of them.
On the minimum wage, obviously one is to extend it till May of 2021 before it goes into effect. Is that what you anticipate to be an issue?
Do I anticipate it's going to be discussed? It's going to be an issue, and I think that most people, and this is just my opinion. We had a caucus meeting last night on the telephone, but I don't know what my colleagues, my good friends on the other side of the Senate are going to do. But I think there's a feeling that because of the stress on businesses right now because of COVID-19, that it would be a prudent measure to push it back.
My understanding was initially the governor's comments about it actually had more to do with what it was going to cost the state, because there's a lot of state employees who make minimum wage, and it was going to be a tremendous increase. As a small business owner, I thought it was a little bit hypocritical in that, okay, so you're saying that it's okay to do this to business when you recognize that the state can't afford to take this on. But, I mean, and granted, I realize that if they push it back till May of 21, it does it for everybody. But doesn't that demonstrate itself that this is bad for business?
I don't think so, Mike. And first of all, I should have prefaced my remarks. It's great to see you again. Enjoyed working with you when we were in the House of Delegates together. No, I don't believe that that's the case at all, Mike. I think that our country built the largest middle class in the world because of the minimum wage that began in 1931, and I think it's a good thing. I'm going to listen to the debate, okay? I haven't decided how I'm going to vote on, but I am a believer, I'm an acolyte of increasing the minimum wage in the Commonwealth of Virginia, ultimately to $15 an hour. Many businesses have already done that, just because it's the right thing to do. But I know that people cannot live on $7.25 an hour. You just can't live on $300 a week. So I am going to listen to the debate, but I myself am inclined to think that, yeah, we should at least start this minimum wage hike to $9.50, and that's going to probably be where I go when I sit down at the Virginia Museum. The Science Museum. That's where I'm headed.
So do you think it's going to be extended till May, or do you think maybe that...
I don't know. I think I don't know the sentiment of the body. I think there are a lot of people in my caucus that think that's something we should do now, irrespective of COVID-19. It's going to be a close call.
Okay.
Joe, let me ask you something. Susan Stewart is with us. She's a constituent of yours. She owns a salon in Petersburg.
Right.
Apothic Company. Joe's your state senator. Susan, if you didn't know that, good to have you meet each other. She's been shut down, and the governor keeping businesses shuttered until May 8th. A lot of people in Petersburg are going to go out of business, Joe. These are your constituents. They can't make it till May 8th, let alone if it extends it beyond that. But you look at the numbers in Virginia, Joe, they don't add up. Only, 300 deaths. That's half of the number of deaths from the regular influenza in Virginia, same period of time. We have 5,000 open COVID-19 beds. 75% of the ventilators are still open. So everything in Virginia pointing in the right direction. Why can't we open now?
Because there's a great concern that there will be an uptick if we, take our foot off the gas pedal so as to slow down COVID-19. That's the issue. Let's be clear.
Define an uptick. Like, what does that mean? Like
okay.
5 people, 10 people? Do you have a metric for that?
I don't have a metric. I think the University of Virginia has a metric.
The one that just got the same university that just got $12 million out of COVID-19 when they have billions of dollars of endowments. Different issue, John.
John, you're mixing two different issues in order to make a point.
Thank you.
And
I'm good at that.
Yes, and it didn't work with me. Listen, first of all, let's just be clear. Washington State University had a model that suggested that we would peak this week, okay? And then the University of Virginia's model said, no, it's more likely to be in August. I know the following, and I do a Just the Facts, Ma'am section every two days a week, just giving people the facts. I know the following with absolute certainty. The number of confirmed COVID-19 cases in the Commonwealth and in the United States is drastically underreported.
Right.
There's no question about that.
By up to 85%.
Sure. It could. Excuse me. No.
USC.
Up by 700%. Almost many.
700%.
Yes. Some people suggested that it's underreported. By 7. It's 7 times greater than it is.
Right.
And here's why. We have 8.5 million people in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and we have tested just under 0.4%, about 60,000 people. Now, you can't base a model on that. There's another thing. There are many people out there that are sick, that got the virus and are asymptomatic.
Right.
Okay? Any of the 6 people, 8 people in this room could have it, could feel fine.
Right.
Mike looks like the epitome of health.
Yes.
Got rosy cheeks. He's tall. He's strapping. He's strong.
He's got guns.
He's got guns. Could be asymptomatic and be carrying the virus.
Yes.
Here's the point, that unlike the flu, when you get the flu, the regular influenza, you're going to feel it for a couple of days and you're going to stay away from people. That's not the case with this. The downside, of course, then the other side of it, there's people that get very, very sick. So here's the problem. It's underreported.
Right.
It could be, 7 times that number of people that have the COVID virus. And science suggests, and the scientists, the epidemiologists, and I spoke to 2 of them earlier this week, is that there will be a second wave, and there always is. Hopefully, I brought a little.
So I don't know what that means. Second wave. We were sold on destroying our small businesses and our way of life and not going to church and all of our civil liberties and being basically people starving to death. We were sold on it for one thing. We didn't want to overrun our hospital system, Joe. We didn't want to overrun the beds, run out of ventilators, and make choices on who was going to live or die like they did on the battlefield of the Civil War. Everybody got that. We did the month. We shut it in place. Now we got 5,000 beds available in Virginia. We've got 75% of the ventilators available. We got 300 people dead, 100 of them from 2 nursing homes. What is the scientific data metric now to keep businesses closed and shuttered where they can't feed their families? Let
me try to address that.
Yes,
okay.
please.
And when during my answer, please don't interrupt it with about the churches closing down, because that has nothing to do with my answer.
But the churches have everything to do with your life.
Different point, Ben.
Go ahead and
Bishop.
answer the
Okay.
question.
And I agree with
Answer the
you,
question.
but a completely different point. Okay.
Alrighty,
Okay.
Joe, go ahead.
So let's just focus on science
You
right
got the
now.
floor.
The cholera virus that lasted nearly 30 years, from 1832 to 1866, had 3 different major waves. Scarlet fever in 1858 had 2 major waves. The Spanish influenza in 1918 that killed 675,000 Americans, all right, had 2 major waves where it died down. People were feeling good, and then it came flying back. The polio virus, okay, that lasted from 1916 to 1955, started with a slow number of deaths. It lowered. People thought we've got this under control, and then uptick, spiraled out of control. Measles in 1981 to 1991. We've had, if you go back and look at all the different plagues that scientists that we've studied, going back to the first major one in Greece that wiped out 80% of Athens, the Justinian plague, the bubonic or black plague, every one of them had a period where they thought that things had died down, they had it under control, and it came roaring back. So that's science. That's a fact that they come back. Here's the question. How long do we shut the businesses down, okay, and so that when we do come back, we have an economy to come back to? I don't know that exact answer.
Yeah, I got the answer. Tomorrow.
Well, why, John? Why tomorrow?
Because
why?
the num-
Well, hold on
because
just a second.
the
Let me just
numbers-
ask this
the
question.
numbers don't justify what you're doing. You have shut the entire means of production down in Virginia. You've shut the economy down. You're putting people out of work, millions of people unemployed, jobs gone, businesses gone, hopes, dreams, shadows. Hey, but here's what we kept open, Joe. ABC liquor stores. So let's just keep everybody drunk. And sales are up 35%. So people are staying home.
Amen.
We haven't looked at suicides, depression, stress,
Domestic
heart attack,
violence.
stroke, domestic violence, child support not being paid. What all this stuff means, all that's shuttered aside, and we're going back to the bubonic plague in 1510. I bet they didn't shut the economy down then. This is becoming.
How about Ebola,
this is
SARS, the swine flu
you know what,
in
Joe?
the last
We have to
50
live with-
years?
We live with disease. Here's what they sold us on. You can't overrun the hospital system. Okay, got it. We'll all stay home and destroy our businesses. Hospital system's not overrun. You got 5,000 beds sitting here in Virginia and 75% of the ventilators sitting in a warehouse. What's the reason to stay home now? Somebody might get sick. Is that what we've come to now?
Once you come up for oxygen, I'm going to give you an answer.
Go ahead.
All right. Number one, I mentioned before, and I think it's a very serious flaw in Virginia and in our country, we haven't been able to test people. If you test people, and like I said, we've only tested 0.4%, then you get better data to get a better model to get a prediction.
Oh,
all
so
right?
now it's testing.
Of
First
course
it was
it's-
ventilators, and now it's
John,
testing.
it's always been testing.
So-
How do you make? Wait
so
a second.
You want to get 8.5 million tests in Virginia, and then maybe we can go
I didn't
out
say,
and buy
John.
a sandwich?
I didn't say that at all. And your snarky comment about go and buy a sandwich is cute, but it doesn't address the issue. No, you don't have to test 8.5 million people.
Lawyering
You know
up.
what we have to do?
Lawyering
You
up.
know what we have to test? You know what we have to
I'm
test?
beating his argument, and now it's
5%.
lawyering up.
5% of the people.
To do what? What does 5% do?
I'm going to answer that question. Take a deep breath. If we test 5% of the people, then we will have a better, it's almost like think of it this way, John, a poll. When you poll people to determine how Mike is going to do in an upcoming election, you don't poll everybody, all right, you poll a representative sample. 5% of the population of Virginia, if we test, would give us a strong indication of two things: who's got the virus, who has antibodies, i.e. they had the virus but they recovered, and it is a predictor. It's the only predictor on how we are, whether or not the number of people who are contagious is going down or up. That's what it will do. Now, I'm a small businessman, okay? And I'm paying my folks their salary during this time. I am not happy about closing it down. But you know what I'm also not happy about? The fact that we could have my 4 little children and your son and your business, your colleagues and your customers, your family, Bishop Benjamin's followers, that they get sick. So all I'm saying is let's tap the brakes. Let's wait until we have that data, and then when we have that data, let's make a predictor on whether or not we can open up
It's a
again.
contradiction
Then there'll
sometimes,
be
Joe.
some other data.
It's a
Then-
contradiction.
look,
Senator,
you'll
I-
get done with that data, and then there'll be some other data you need. In the meantime, I'll decide. I'll decide if I can go out or not. Mike Watson will decide. I don't want Joe Morrissey, Dick Saslaw, Ralph Northam, and a bunch of central planners sitting in Richmond deciding when I can go outside or when I can open up my company, Mike.
Well, John, first of all, aren't you a supporter of President Trump?
Yes.
Didn't you used to be his chairman in Virginia?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't hear you on your bandwagon when President Trump shut down the nation, and he ordered.
Yeah, because
he finally
had
did it.
bad modeling from Fauci and the real estate agent.
But he did it.
Mike, go ahead.
Senator, if I may,
Go
I
ahead.
just want to talk about elective surgeries, because elective surgeries have been shut down, right? And the problem with that is that, for example, most dental surgery
just
is
address
considered
that.
elective. And one more thing, even hip replacement. I've got a member of my family that needs to have, hip replacement surgery and can't because it's not considered necessary. Even like post-cancer for women, breast reconstruction after cancer, that's considered elective. And so, and also I'm concerned, not only I want you to address elective surgery, but then also, Senator, can you address the impact this is going to have on our hospital systems, since over 70% of their income comes from these elective surgeries? I mean, that's where the majority of their
I'll
what's going
address
to
that
happen
right
to
now.
these hospital institutions.
This week, 14 states reopened elective surgery.
Was Virginia one of them?
No, Virginia was
No,
not.
meantime, our hospitals are losing $600.
Right, I'm
$6 million,
Exactly.
$600 million a month.
Exactly,
All right, I'm
John.
going to get to a caller because I'm going to
you.
get Joe
Thank
off
you
the
for
hook because I'm
responding.
destroying him in
I know.
this debate. I don't want to hurt Joe's legal business.
That's like John saying and being in a baseball game and he's down 3 runs in the 9th inning and he's saying, I'm destroying the other team. So you say.
I do owe you $400, and I'll pay you that as soon as the governor reopens the business, so that'll give you an incentive.
He's owed me $400, folks, for 4 months.
Let's get to, long as the business has been shut down. Let's get to Jim in Bon Air. Jim, you're on the line. I'm sorry I destroyed Joe Morrissey in this debate, Jim. Go ahead. You're on the air, Jim.
No problem. So
Go ahead.
Going back to the minimum wage, I'd like Mr. Morrissey to respond to the situation that some people don't have to live on that. There are some younger people or people still living in their parents' basement, unfortunately, or have some kind of other subsidy of their lifestyle. They don't need to make the $15 and shouldn't, frankly, in my opinion, earn that type of money just coming out of high school, say, or something. If they don't
Sure.
need it, and how do you account for part-time workers? It's going to be a hell of a burden on our small businesses to go to that wage, and even some larger businesses. How would you respond?
Sure. I'll respond the following way. Since 1938, 1933, we've had 71 increases in the minimum wage. It began at 25 cents an hour. It's now at $7.25 an hour. And every time that there has been an increase in the minimum wage, the same argument has been trotted out that it will destroy businesses, when in fact it did not. The wage is not going to go to $15 an hour immediately. It's going to go to $9.50, and then over the course of 5 or 6 years, it will hopefully make it to $15 an hour. The biggest myth out there is that we're increasing the minimum wage for the 17-year-old Cosby High School student who drives to school in a Land Rover, whose family lives in a $600,000 house, and he's getting some cash for weekend dates. That's not who we're talking about. Is it Robert?
Jim.
Jim, excuse me. That's not who I'm talking about, Jim. The minimum wage increase is going to help the single mother who has 2 children. She's working, a minimum wage job and she's raising those 2 children. She gets into a 15-year-old car every morning, and she says a silent prayer that it starts. At the end of her 8-hour shift, she starts it again, saying, please start, so she's not 5 minutes late to her job to to her daycare, so they don't charge her $20.
But that 17-year-old still going to get that minimum wage increase.
He is.
I know that's maybe not who you're targeting.
Correct.
So many things we're talking about are like zero-sum issues. It's all or nothing. Whether it's opening the government back up, whether it's minimum wage bills. That's my challenge right now with the General Assembly. Of course, it's been like this a long time. Is you get these arguments on one side, it has to be all of one or all of the other, and they're not negotiating hybrids in there.
It's a good point, Mike. It's not all or there's a middle ground. And the example that I gave about the Cosby High School student, that person is on the fringe. The people who are going to benefit from the minimum wage are the people that are actually working minimum wage jobs in order to put food on the table. I am not talking about those seasonal workers who, although they will benefit from a minimum wage, that's not really who we're focused on.
When you say the benefit, though, I mean, you've as a small business owner yourself, you've got to recognize there's some businesses that may be paying $7.25 today for students coming in from college or whatever to work for the summer that aren't going to be able to afford to essentially double that pay over the next 5 years and maintain those number of jobs. Just like right now, you got kids coming home from school or young adults coming home from colleges. You can't find jobs because of the virus. You're going to have that situation every single year.
I agree. First of all, let's understand and explain to that listening audience out there who is sitting in this seat right now. It is not Joe Morrissey, some bleeding heart liberal, but rather a Joe Morrissey who has been signing the fronts of checks for 30 years, who has been establishing businesses, who's run 3 multi-million-dollar businesses, that pays employees, that understands a bottom line. That's me. I'm not some of this new wave of Democrats that are coming into the House and think that everything that comes down the pike is something, I'll vote for without an understanding of how we pay for it. So I am I think, a fiscally prudent businessman. All right? And at least one of these people at this table I've done and am doing business with. But with that said, I still believe to my core that increasing the minimum wage is good for America, good for Virginians, but let's do it incrementally. By the way, as you know, Mike, in the General Assembly, you cannot commit a future General Assembly, the next session, to a course of action. That is prohibited by our Constitution. Accordingly, if we're wrong and then we won't go to 15 or 14 or 13 or 12 if we are wrong, and we'll find that out. But immediately, we should go to $9.50 an hour. In fact, I would say that most of these people at this table who are businessmen, businesswomen, are probably paying $9.50 an hour. Susan, are you?
Yeah.
Of course.
a lot
Martha,
more.
are you? John, are you?
Twice that.
I would never.
John, are you?
I would never pay anybody under $12 an hour.
Mike?
Everybody that I've got is making considerably more than that.
Yeah.
And Bishop, you have people in your church. Are they making at least $9.50?
Yeah, they're making more than that because they
There
pay
we
their
go.
tithes. But when they're out of work, they can't pay tithes
Right.
because
All
they're
right.
not getting any income. This thing about wanting to earn a wage without qualified skills, this thing will mess up the people who have qualified skills who now going to want more. It causes a domino effect, and it will cause people to say, well, I don't have to even learn anything anymore or any qualified skills. Remember, when you pay somebody, you're paying them to solve a problem. You're paying them to learn a particular skill. I've never seen a person who says, I'm just going to go find something
Leon,
to make some money.
it's tough to argue against $9.50 an hour. I mean,
Yeah.
I got to be honest. There's no employee that I would have in my radio stations that I would pay $7.50 an hour. I just
I
wouldn't do
agree.
it.
People are
There's
making
no-
more than
nobody's
that.
going to get $10.
End of story then. We all agree that the
story.
minimum wage should go up to $9.50.
Absolutely. and
End
it
of
should
story.
today.
I'm not sure we all agreed. with
I
that.
don't know if we
But
agree with
if
that.
there's-
I'm just
if there's
saying.
if there's no business open, like Joe wants to keep them shut down. If there's no business open, it doesn't matter if it's $9.50 or $1, right? You
Yeah,
can't get
nobody's
paid.
making nothing.
If it's a
What
small
Dan-
community
I got a
ice
text here
cream
from
shack
Dan
and
Black.
the folks coming home for summer vacation and they want to go in there and scoop ice cream, I think that's okay to be a $7.50, $8 an hour job, and you can put a number of kids to work.
You can't get anybody for $8. You can't get one of these kids to
Well,
work
that's
for
why, and
$7.50.
that's a great
They're not
point,
gonna
John.
do
That's why the
$7.50.
free market needs to do that. If you can't, then you've got to pay more, and you've got to
Well,
pay
we
more.
already have.
I
That's-
don't pay
that's
my
why the
people the
minimum wage
money I
doesn't
pay them
matter,
because I'm
because
mandated
nobody's
to.
paying
I pay them that
$7.50.
money because that's what it takes to make sure I'm getting the best people and keeping them. That's the free market. That's how it works.
Spot on.
Well, then you don't need a minimum wage. Then why have we had a minimum wage since 1930? Because big businesses exploited children and paid them 10 cents an hour. That's why we have a minimum wage. That was the
So
was the
let me
basis of
understand this, John. You're in agreement that the minimum wage and the genesis of the minimum wage is and was a good thing.
it. Yes, because people
Okay.
were being exploited
All right. And it was good for
by big
70
business.
years.
Wall Street, the gangster banksters. Yes.
Good for 70 years. But all of a sudden now it's not good? Explain that to your listening audience. Why it was
I'm in
good at
favor
the
of a minimum. I'm not with Mike on this. I'm in favor of going to $9.50 an hour now.
Okay.
Today.
All right, good.
I'm in favor of it.
All right, we're in agreement on
Yeah,
that.
absolutely. I've always been in favor of the minimum wage.
Well,
There-
talk to the people at McDonald's. They got kiosks up now where they've replaced their cashiers and replaced their workers because everything is going automated. We got
It was
machines
going to go automated
now
anyway. It didn't
making
go,
fries.
You're not going to tell me that McDonald's went automated because it's $9 instead of $8. Come on, Leon.
Well,
I got to read this text from Den. Okay, this is a great text. He says, "Joe, what the hell's a second wave? What does this mean in Virginia? Another 300 CV-19 casualties? So now we go from 300 to 600? Get a grip, Den.
Okay.
Respond."
I'm not going to go over what I said before about a second wave, other than to say that all viruses since the 13th century don't simply rise and then they get them under control and it drops to zero. It drops significantly, and then it comes back again. That's what I mean by a second wave. I can't be any clearer than that. There's no reason to suggest that that COVID-19 won't have an additional wave. By the way, what we're talking about is, I know I've got lots of business folk that want to reopen and they want to do it sooner rather than later, and I want that as well. But I just want to be prudent and practical about it. All right, that's it. Okay, and I think this is one of
That sounds great. Here's my point, Joe, and I love you to death. That
As you
sounds great on a soundbite. Oh, I want to open business safely and be prudent and safe, and there could be a second wave, and we got to protect everybody, and we got to this, that. Oh, it sounds great. I love it. It sounds so good. I'm so excited about it. Every day, businesses aren't open. Lives are getting shattered. People are filing bankruptcy. People can't get paid. People can't feed their families. Every single day that goes by. So the words sound nice, but the reality doesn't match. Meantime, hey, let's all get drunk. ABC stores up 35%. You know what? When Vladimir Lenin took over Russia, the first thing the communists did, Mike? The first thing they did? They flooded the country with cheap vodka. That was the number one thing they did. Hey, let's just get everybody drunk, right? Unbelievable.
Joe, getting
John,
back
that's
to the
third
economy.
time in this argument you talked about ABC stores staying open and
Yes.
people.
As long their view was, as long as we can give people cheap alcohol in Russia, this was like what, 1917. As long as they can stay drunk, we can control them. This is a sick system. You can't cut hair, but you can go to the 6 people could go to the ABC store, buy them out, drink themselves silly, and die on the road, and that's fine.
Ask me a question. Do I think the ABC store should stay open? Ask me that.
Do you think the ABC store
No, I don't think they're essential workers. All right,
then-
but don't
but then
base
we
your
can't buy
entire
booze.
argument on the fact that Virginia ABC stores are staying open. I find it somewhat disingenuous too that government has many businesses have shut down, but there's a line at ABC. But don't use that, make that the basis of your entire argument, John.
We're not taking into consideration. Let's just take a simple thing. Forget the ABC stores. How many people in April and May are going to miss child support payments? None of this is being factored in. How many businesses are going to have to claim bankruptcy? How many people can't pay their rent or mortgage? How many people are going to die of a stroke because of the stress? When you can't feed your family, hey, look, I went through this in 2008. Nobody can talk about this with more authority than John Fredericks. I went through it with my family. I know what it is to not put food on the table, okay? I was homeless for a 2-year period. I had an infant, right? I lived day to day. I get it. You have no idea the stress this puts on it. We got these central planners saying, well, May 8th looks like a good date, and there might be a second wave based on the 1507 bubonic plague and the Machiavellian wars of the of 6 BC or something. This is all asinine. You got to open these businesses up, Joe. People are suffering, and you of all people should understand that.
I'm a businessman.
Of course.
Right. I've gone down, and in Petersburg, I started a construction project down there this week. Put 6 people to work full time. All right, but we did it, I think, prudently. We have in that construction thing, we're still practicing. They're practicing social distancing. I'm not saying. I mean, listen. Like I said, I've run businesses. I'm just saying that you can't just issue an edict and say, open up America, put everybody on planes, have 1,500 people in a church side by side. Okay.
But you just made a valid point for opening up some business. My business continues to operate. We got less business than we had 2 months ago.
I fully agree.
But
I haven't suggested ever that we shut down all businesses.
Okay,
that's coming from John and his rhetoric.
Okay,
you got to filter out what he's saying.
That's the point. Here is we've got an opportunity to get businesses back to work, to let Susan get her salon back open, and practice social distancing and schedule appointments that don't overlap and things like that.
Great point, Mike. And let me tell you what I think we ought to be able to do with Susan's salon. She ought to be able to make appointments and have people come in there. So there's 2 hairstylists, 10 feet apart, dealing with a customer wearing their mask. All in favor. The Richmond Zoo, I sent a letter to the governor, and I said, listen, people, it's 150 acres. They want to issue tickets so that people have specific times to go. They will be 20 feet apart. All right, that's a good thing, and I'm hoping that they're considering.
So are you talking to the governor about this? Because
I sent him a letter.
I sent him a letter too. And particularly, I was talking about the personal care services for that very thing. You could place limits, and this is where maybe John and I disagree a little bit. And I'm as capitalistic as you can get, but I recognize we can't have venues where you got concerts and people sitting beside.
That's all I'm saying, Mike.
And so
exactly.
And so is the governor listening? Because he's not listening to me. Is he listening to you?
He's listening to his progressive left-wing crackpot base. That's who.
I don't think that's true, John.
Yes, it is.
I spoke to Deputy Secretary of Commerce and Labor, and the governor, I think, is moving cautiously, prudently, but I think there are going to be a lessening of restrictions. I think Susan will be able to have her customers come in.
Why can't Susan decide that? Okay, you know what's going to be interesting? We're going to Georgia next week. It's going to be interesting to see what happens in Georgia, because what their governor did, Brian Kemp, said, you know what, I'm going to open everything back up except bars, concerts, nightclubs. Everything else is open, beaches. And I'm going to leave it to the people to decide, business owners and people to decide how to keep themselves safe. And I have a high confidence level they'll figure it out. Why can't we do that?
Well, to some degree, people are doing it now. I think, for example, gyms, if you have a trainer and he schedules people and has one person come in, all right, works with that person, practicing social distancing, that works. Susan can have her customers in, have appointed times. That's working right now. If you go into the big box stores like Home Depot, they've got too many people in there. They're standing, they're not practicing social distancing. So it can be done prudently. And so I'm with Mike, all right, that we open some of these businesses and we can do it in a practical, common sense approach.
All right, so you and I, unfortunately, can't make that decision.
100% in lockstep.
We can't make that decision. The governor can. So how do we get this? How do we get the governor to move forward with this?
I have sent in the last 2 weeks 3 letters to the governor explaining my position. I said I went out to the Richmond Metropolitan Zoo. They've got 150 acres. People need to get out. It's outside. Exercise. They will issue tickets every 15 minutes for groups to come in there. And as Deputy Secretary of Commerce and Labor said, we're going to consider that when the first order, I think it's 53, comes to an end. So it's not a situation like Mr. Fredericks says where the governor is simply not listening to the science or the scientists. I think he's going about it in a good way. And I'm disappointed that John can't give Governor Northam credit for that.
I can give him credit for the fact that he didn't get on his private jet and fly to Manteo or North Carolina like some people are saying on social media. That is a complete falsehood. Never happened. There's no evidence of it. There's no pictures. It's all over social media. I put a tweet out yesterday. Stop doing that. He stayed in Richmond. He's got to deal with these 1,200 crazy legislative bills he has. So he's not going and sneaking in to North Carolina. So stop that. But I don't
like every day in my office, we have 4 people come into my legislative office. We practice social distancing. We deal with COVID-19 questions all day long. When we were last week, we went down and we delivered 20,000 pounds of food to 3 senior centers in Petersburg. Practice social distancing. That's what I can do as a legislator, and that's what we're doing. So, I don't know. John will come around, and his listening audience will agree that I'm correct and that the governor is doing all that he can do.
I destroyed you in this argument, but I went easy on you because you're my friend and I love you to death, and I don't want to
you should.
on the air. Other than that, we're good to go.